Hello everybody, welcome to Catherine Sews. What in the heck am I wearing today? Well, this dress caught my attention on the rack in the thrift store. Now, all of this malarkey is stuff that I would never in my lifetime wear, but I'm going to Vancouver Frocktails soon, and that's a really fun event. This year it's hosted by my friends at Fabcycle to launch their new sewing app called SewJo. And it's going to be a big to-do, and all the participants are encouraged to wear a dress that they made. So I immediately thought of this one that's been hanging in my little to-do room. And so I wonder if I can transform this dress. The reason it caught my attention is because of the beautiful border print on the skirt. I just love it. I think it's so pretty. And I do enjoy wearing black at nighttime. I think it's such an elegant color. So this dress has potential, but I'm going to obviously have to redo the entire bodice, get rid of all this and make it fit. And it's also far too long. I'm tripping over it, but that's kind of a good thing because that means I've got extra fabric in the length. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm going to try and transform this dress into something that I can wear to the Frocktails event. I'm super excited about this. I've been wanting to tackle this dress for a while, and this is the perfect chance to wear it. So if that sounds good to you, then let's take apart this dress and see how we can put it back together. So first thing I need to do is start taking all of this stuff off. In a recent video, I showed you this, my favorite new seam ripper. And then a viewer commented and said, no, Catherine, you got to get the one that doesn't have the plastic and that has replaceable blades. Oh, that is so much better. So now I've got this one. So I immediately changed the length because yes, this is superior. That's so nice, right? It still comes with a little cap, but also with replacement blades. Like, that is just so beautiful. So I'm going to start up here and find little stitches. I had only used that seam ripper on denim, and I said that I didn't think I would use it on fine fabrics. So I'm trying it out here because honestly, I don't think I'm even going to be using this part of the fabric. I think I'll be cutting the bodice out of the top part of the skirt. So I wasn't even worried if I do wreck the fabric here, but you know what? It doesn't seem to be wrecking anything. It seems pretty good. I'm sort of tempted to see if I can reuse some of it, but I don't know. We'll see. I'll take a minute and remove it because I think I have to recut all of this. So I'll come right back to you in a second. Okay, so I took off all of those beads and I put on this dress because I love this dress. Do you remember the video I made a few months ago? I'll link it in the description. I love this dress, but I haven't worn it yet because I feel like I need a fancy daytime event. It doesn't really feel evening-ish, but it's so pretty. So I'm going to use the same bodice pattern that I used to make this dress and shorten that skirt from the top, put the two together, back zipper, Bob's your uncle. So if I'm going to do this one again though, I kind of made a little wish list. What would I like to do differently this time? Nothing massive, but it sits a little high right here. I think that if the fabric was any stiffer at all, or if I had it on for any great length of time, that would end up irritating me. So I'll drop it half an inch there, coming to nothing at the side seam. And then I think about half an inch higher at the back, just so it covers my bra better. That's just not that pretty. Like, it almost covers, but not 100%. So I think I'll just raise it up a little bit at the back. And then here, I think it would be nice if the strap kind of flared out at the end. Yeah, maybe both ends, right? If it kind of flared out here on this side, I think that could be pretty. And again, better bra strap coverage, right? It's not great when my bra shows. I don't love that. Other than that, I think I love everything else about the dress. Love the length, love the full skirt. So the pattern I'm using is McCall 7718, and I've already done all the fitting on the bodice. So really all I need to do is make those few little wish list changes. So I'll do that right now and show you the process. Okay, so these are the 3 pattern pieces I have to change, but I started noticing how large they are and started wondering if I'm actually going to be able to cut them out of the top of the dress and still maintain a skirt that's about 32 inches long. You might have been wondering the same thing, and no, I don't have enough. And so, lucky little me, I went into my stash. I don't even keep a very big stash, but I found these 2 black chiffons They both have a texture to them that's slightly different from the dress, but I think the blacks match pretty well. And I just don't think, like, this is what it looks like without the beading. And I just don't think I can make that work. It's just not. I mean, it's too wide and it isn't working for me. So new bodice out of new chiffon. This is the place that I find is too high and kind of cutting into my underarms. So I want to come to nothing there and nothing here, but down about 1/2 inch in between. So if I kind of just rough in that line and then clean up the line with my curved ruler. Okay. And then for the back piece, again, I'm coming to nothing at the side seam, but I wanted just 1/2 inch higher for the rest of the way. So again, I'll just rough that in. I'm not making any changes to the center panel, but I'll still put it onto the new paper. And then with my pointed tracing wheel, I'll just mark notches and grain lines. And then I just cut everything out. And then mark the grain lines and the notches and labeled all the pieces. So the strap is originally 2 3/4 inch wide. And I want the strap to finish at 13 inches long. I'll give 1/2 inch of seam allowance, 13 inches and 1/2 inch of seam allowance. And then just on one side, and it's the same side on the front and the back, the bottom 3 inches, I want to have it flare out 1/2 inch. And you know what? I want it to reach that full 1/2 inch at the seam allowance. I want to have a full 1/2 inch there. Okay. There we go. That's it for my strap. Oh, I need to have that on both sides, don't I? Right, it has to be drawn on both sides because this strap is going to fold in the middle because it is cut to. Okay, that'll do. I've got the chiffon that's the better match, and it's lighter weight on top, and it's layered on top of the one that's just not quite as good, but it's heavier. So I'm going to use that as the lining. And so I've got everything nice and smooth and layered and all looking good. And now I can go ahead and cut. Whether you use a rotary cutter or scissors, doesn't matter, it's up to you. But for the notches, never use your rotary cutter. Always just snip with your scissors. I try to lift the paper up so I can snip underneath so that the points of my scissors stay nice and sharp. Okay, so for the straps, I am using a double layer just because that chiffon is very sheer, and I think it will look different from the rest of this dress if I don't use the double layer. We don't normally line straps, but I think in this case I will. So now I'm just kind of carefully folding all the layers together, and then I'll just sew the length of this. So that's ready to go to the machine. And I'll also prepare the first sewing step of the bodice. And these ones I will sew separately. So there's the chiffon layer. And this layer, I guess, really is a georgette or even a crepe. And so I'll be sewing all the vertical seams on the front of the bodice. This is where notches are so important. So the notches just help you to figure out what goes together with what. Where does the ease go? If there is any extra fabric, where should it be eased in? And on princess seams like this, it's always at the curved part. There's not a lot of ease here, but you just want to bring edges together. So I hardly ever sew in black anymore because I know it doesn't make for a great video, but I do enjoy wearing black. So every once in a while, I ask you to indulge me as I sew black on black. So there's the georgette lining. There are 6 seams ready to go to the machine. And because this fabric is so lightweight and sheer, I just tested it out with my universal needle and it looks like it's going to be just fine. See this fabric bunching up here? I don't want to keep going that way because it's only going to get worse. So I'm going to start at the other end and hopefully meet okay in the middle. When I've got extra, it's good to have that extra facing down where the feed dogs can kind of move it along. And I'll just put a bit of tension on it, making sure to keep my edges together. Good, and then that worked out just fine, no puckers. Good. These princess seams are so delicate that I definitely want to be able to hold my threads at the back here. Otherwise that lightweight fabric can get sucked down into the machine and all tangled up in a mess. But if I keep a hold of that thread, just the top one is all you really need to hold. Just for the first few stitches. And then pick it back up again. Then your fabric stays laying flat and you don't get a big tangle on the back of your back tack. So there's the back of the back tack, just as neat as the front. Good. Okay, so everything goes to the iron now. And then I'll use a tailor's ham to press those princess seams open and flat. Find a place on the ham where the curve of the seam fits over the tailor's ham. And then you can press open and flat. You want to use your fingers to make sure it's fully flattened out before you touch it with the iron. And make sure your iron's not too hot on a synthetic like this. So now I've got both layers of the front bodice laying right side up, and there's a double notch. So I want to put the back bodice right side together, matching up the double notch. If you didn't already agree that notches are so important, that's why, right? It would otherwise be very easy to get this one upside down, or I might even struggle putting the wrong edge there. So the notches just really keep you on track. So same thing, painting corners and notches. Okay, so now I've got 4 seams to take to the machine. So these seams are just straight, so I don't need to use the tailor's ham. So they're even easier to press open and flat. For the straps, you can turn them using either a safety pin or a loop turner. And I just want to bring the seam right out to the edge. I don't want there to be any indentation there. So that takes a little manipulation with your hands. Get it looking good, and then I can press. If I pinch the seam and then put a little tension on it, then that makes it a little easier to get that seam right out to the edge. And then I think I'm going to like that these straps flare out just that little bit. I think that's going to look nice. And if one side looks better than the other, then we're going to call that the right side. Then I want to have the right side down so that the two pieces are right side together. So I'm going to be just securing the strap there, and then it kind of curves around and comes to the back. And I know I just measured on the blue dress, and I want this edge to be 3.5 inches from that seam. Very fiddly. Okay, and then make sure it's not twisted. It comes all the way around to sit 3.5 inches from that seam. Awesome. So I'll just secure all those points, and then the two bodices will sew right sides together. So this is essentially basting, but I'm not going to use a long stitch length. I'll use my regular stitch length, but I'm going to do it closer to the edge so that this line of stitching doesn't show at the end. And I'm just going to more or less chain these together. Okay, good. And then I can just snip them apart. So the strap is in place. I did try it on. I think everything is good. And now this one is laying right side up, and then the lining is going to go right side down against it. The strap gets sandwiched in between the layers, and then I'm going to pin all those matching points, all the corners, all the seams. And then I can pin in between, and I do want to get the edge, like where the strap is. I want to definitely pin there because otherwise it kind of can get, the strap is pulling there. It can get distorted. So a pin there is a very good idea. Okay, so now I think it is useful to mark that. So you can kind of eyeball where your seam allowance is on both sides there. So that shows me exactly where I'm going to pivot. So now it's just sewing across that whole top edge. I'll do a little back tack at both sides of the strap because that is such a point of tension. So I'm coming up to my pivot point. And I can just walk the needle right to that V, leave the needle down and pivot. Nice clean pivot there. And wouldn't you know it, my bobbin ran out way back there. My machine beeped way too late, but lucky for me, I was smart today and I wound a new bobbin before I got started. Yay me, planning ahead. So my two layers are nicely sewn together, no problems there at all. And then I did my clipping and trimming along that top edge. So the most important clip is right at the V, and I snip down almost to my stitching, but you leave just a tiny bridge and you definitely don't cut your stitching, and it should be able to comfortably open out right like that. So we're looking fine. And then I just did little snips around any area that had any kind of curve. Where it's straight, you don't have to do anything. And now I'm going to take it back to the machine. I'll do my understitching. So let me show you that. So now for understitching. This heavier one is my lining. I want the seam allowance coming off toward my right, toward the lining. And I'll hold my thread for the first few stitches. Okay, and then my job now is to just make sure that that seam allowance stays going off to the right. So it's nice that this is so sheer because I'll be able to see, and I'll also be able to feel if that seam allowance flips over there. So you just keep it going off to your right. The strap is also going off to your right, and my hands will be doing this just to really get it flattened right out. I never want to have any extra here. just always opened right out flat. Oh, there's my seam allowance coming out. Cheeky little thing. Get it back there to the right. Make sure it's all laying nice. So this, you can see where I've clipped, and those little clipped sections want to come out. But it is good to clip before you understitch. Otherwise you can't clip far enough. So this is the front V. It's not good to just understitch all the way around there. It kind of rounds out the V. So I want to have it nicely opened. There's some extra here. That's just going to stay out of the way. Little back tack. And then rearrange and bring myself to this side of the V. And here we go. So the straps go toward the outer fabric, so it's still laying right side together. Okay, fantastic. So the understitching is done. And what that does is just, it keeps the lining to the inside and gives me a really nice edge on the outside where I don't see the lining coming out. It just gives me that nice edge. Beautiful. Looking good, right? So with that understitching done, everything is just sitting so nice. And now I want to sew my two layers together down the side, across the bottom, and up the other side. So I want to put some pins because this fabric is a little tricky to work with. It just has a mind of its own. So I'm still pinning matching points, corners and seams together, and then in between, just to make sure everything stays on track. Good. So I'm just going to sew maybe at the edge of my presser foot so that line of stitching doesn't show later, down, across, and up. You definitely want to make sure that the bodice fits nicely before you seal it all up like this. And I've gone ahead and serged the center back edges. From now on, this whole contraption will be treated like one layer of fabric. And now I started to wonder if the top was too plain. All of the focus of this dress is going to be at the bottom. So I wondered if there's something I can do to brighten up the top. I found these beads that relate well in the color, but I don't know. And then I looked on Instagram. This tutorial just popped up in my feed, so I've been playing around with ways of creating something beautiful at the top. So I'm going to come back to that, and I'm excited about that. This little play break I just took has been really fun. So I'll come back to that once the dress is done. I need to make sure I at least have something to wear. Okay, so the bodice is going aside, and now I need to cut off the skirt 32.5 inches from the bottom. The other thing I did was remove the zipper because I'm going to reuse that same invisible zipper. And then I also opened up what's going to be the center back seam because that's where I want my zipper to be, not at the side. Okay, so to cut that skirt off, I need to just fold this all nice and even Steven, which is always easier said than done. The side seams are clipped together. So it's folded in 4, right? Which means I have 8 layers because of the lining as well. Good. So with my meter stick now, I'm just going to mark 32.5 all the way along. Please don't assume that I am brave. I am scared. As long as I have right angles at my folds, this should be fine. Phew. Okay, no turning back now. There's my opening for my zipper. This is all good. My clips can all come off. Good. Whew. Okay. And I do want those edges re-serged. So I'm just going to run to the serger and serge those raw edges that I just opened up. Good. So those center back edges of the skirt are finished nicely on the serger. And now I've got this folded in half, and I'm going to give myself a center notch on the bottom of the bodice, right at the center front. And on the skirt, if I fold it in half, and compare. So then yes, there is a bit of gathering. So I'm giving myself a little notch at the center front. So let's go and run a gathering stitch along the top of the skirt. So for the gathering stitch, I want to leave long tails of thread at beginning and end, and I don't want to go right to my zipper area. So I'll start, I don't know, an inch or a few centimeters away from the center back. And I've increased my stitch length to 5 millimeters, and I'm just going to sew at the edge of my presser foot. At the side seam, I'll lift up, pull out long tails of thread, and then start up again. And at the second side seam, same thing. So no back tacks and don't cut your thread short. Okay, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the lining. So I'm laying the bodice down right side up, and this is the bottom edge of it. And I like to use lots of pins when I'm gathering, and I think pins are better than clips for gathering. So now this skirt piece is going to go right side together, and I haven't pulled up the gathering thread yet. I'm just going to pin the matching points. So there's the two center back edges, and then I want to match up the side seams and the center front notches, side seams, and center back edges. Good. And now I know exactly how much I need to pull up the gathering stitch just to get each section to fit. Just hold the thread steady while you shuffle the fabric along it. So as long as it's evenly distributed, each little section like that. Some people do like to do 2 rows of gathering. If there's a ton of gathering and it's a very long section, then I will do 2 rows. But honestly, 99% of the time I just do 1 row and it's fine. Once I know it fits, then I push the gathers around to make them nice and even. And then we'll just sew straight across that waist seam. So the lining still has to get sewn on. So I know I'll be sewing across the same area again. So I think right now I'm just going to leave my long stitch length just in case I want to move these gathers around at all. But now I am sewing more at the 5/8 line or 15 line. So even as I go, I can do 2 things. One is I want to make sure that my edge isn't starting to go down, like curling down into the seam, because that does not look good when your edge pokes out through the seam. That's one thing. And then the second thing is I can just kind of push the gathers around as I sew to make sure they are nice and even and that they're going straight up and down. I don't ever want a gather to get kind of pushed on an angle. Okay, all set there, looking good. So the skirt is sewn onto the bodice, looking good. I actually did just pop it on. It looks really, really pretty. So now I want to attach the lining also to that same bodice seam, but on the other side. So the bodice is going to be sandwiched in between the outer skirt and the lining. And now just before I sew the lining on, I've put a set of double pins about 1.5 inches or so away from each end because I actually don't want to sew the end of the lining because I need to get in there to put the zipper in later. So I'll just be sewing from one set of double pins to the other, and then it's all about the zipper. So I've just switched back to a regular stitch length and I'm starting at the set of double pins. Under here, I want to make sure that the skirt is laying smooth under there. I don't want it to be pushed out here and have those gathers get caught back into the seam. I want to make sure it's staying going down. And then stop at that set of double pins. So then I'll just check the first side again to make sure that nothing bad happened or nothing bad that will look bad. If you can't tell, then I'm not bothered. This isn't terrible, but it's not great. Can you see that this one pleat got pushed over? And I don't think that'll look beautiful on the outside. I think that'll look funny, so I'm just going to fix that one. And that's only going to take a second, and it'll be worth it. It's just a matter of picking about 5 stitches, which is never fun when you're sewing with black thread on black, but that's okay. See how that was folded over like that? It'll look better if it's just able to go down naturally. So here is the invisible zipper that I took off of the side seam of this dress. And now I'm going to place it right side together with the center back seam. And I want to place it so that this little middle part of that zipper, that's what I want to eyeball and get it right at the top of my dress. All right. Remember I said that I wanted the zipper this far below the waist. Well, there's my waist seam. So I want to take this zipper just to here. And the lining you can see is staying out of my way, and we'll deal with it later. You can buy an invisible zipper foot. I don't have one. So I'm going to use my regular zipper foot, which actually does work fine. But what I'm going to do is move my needle more to the left. There. So on this first side, I just need to be the one to unroll the teeth, which you have to do anyway, even with the proper presser foot. You have to unroll it. The invisible zipper foot just kind of guides you more easily along those teeth, but I think I'll be okay. And you can see here that my lining is out of the way. And I'll stop at my wax mark. So the first side is on with no trouble at all. I want to mark where that waist seam hits the zipper. So to do that, I have to zip this right back up. So there's the waist seam. I want it to hit the zipper right there. And I'm going to hold the zipper like that so I make sure I don't flip it or twist it or anything until I get it right side together with the other side. And bring my wax mark to the waist seam on this side. Now I'm pointing my pins down. They were pointing up before, but I always want to have the edge on my right when I'm sewing. And so I'm going to be starting at the bottom on this side and coming up. So I'll start at my wax mark and make my way up to the top. That is nice, looking good there. I want to make sure my waist seam matches. This is the gathering thread, and anywhere that that shows, I can just easily pull it out. I don't want to keep that anymore. It's done its job, and so it can go. So I think that's pretty good. It matches up pretty well at the top, but then I've got all of this yucky stuff to deal with. And so what I want to do is I just fold that zipper back on itself. I can also tuck in this serger tail. I can bring that right in between the fabric and the zipper, bring the zipper tape down onto it, and just give a little back tack right there to hold all of that down nicely. So with all of that secure, then I can cut off all these yucky threads. And I can even bring the corner of the back down and then bring down the zipper. So everything is sort of being tucked down and away. And I've switched back to the regular presser foot for that. And then just a little back tack. That keeps everything nice and neat. That looks good, right? Okay, beautiful. Okay, couple things left to do on the zipper. And one is to sew that little seam from where my stitching stops at the bottom of the zipper to where it picks up again down here. So just that little smidge. And sometimes it's easiest to have the regular zipper foot in for this. If I'm trying to get right into that spot, then I can't have the zipper pushing me one way or the other. So if I pin the two sides of the zipper together, it keeps it kind of evenly out of the way. And then come right up as close as I can to where my stitching ends here. Okay, that's pretty good. I've made the connection pretty okay there. That is a bit of tricky business there. Just getting right in there without making puckers, but I think we did okay. The bottom of the zipper should look pretty decent. That's not bad. It'll do. Last thing, and then this dress is done, is dealing with this lining on the side of the zipper. So if I fold under that top edge and then fold in my seam allowance, that's what I want to happen here. I want that corner to end up kind of nice like that. So this edge of the lining, I want to sew from the inside. So I'm reaching up through the skirt, turning in that little edge of the seam allowance and grabbing the seam allowance in the zipper there, right? So I'm holding it all right in here, and then I'm going to pull that out. And then I'm just going to sew down in between my zipper stitching here and the edge. And then once I start bumping into the slider, I'll do my back tack. The little corner I have to just, with a needle and thread, just make a couple stitches right there. But now you can see that the zipper is cleanly lined, right? That looks good. Serged edge of the lining and the serged edge of the zipper. Good. This is what I hold on to. I can let go of this one. And now I'm going to flip the whole skirt over. And I can stick a pin right there. So basically, they are just right sides together. Again, on this side, I'll start at the bottom. Both sides are done, and then I just have the opening at the bottom of the zipper of the lining. So this one is not as hard because it's not sewn to the zipper. And then this dress is essentially done, right? Because I used the original hem, so that's in place. So I want to make a little embellishment. So I've been playing around with all kinds of different things. Then this thing just popped up on my Instagram feed. This little Instagram post that I will definitely link to the original creator. It's so beautiful and it's quite easy. So I just ironed the corner of this ivory satin. It's so pretty. And then I'm just going to layer it right side together with my black sheer fabric. And then with my little scrap of soap and a coffee mug. And I'm just going to draw around this mug. And then a pins. And then I'm just going to cut out around them. And then I'm going to give myself 2 little notches on each. One to start at and one to stop at, because it is a little tricky to see. I'm just going to sew through both layers. Okay, and then with my good scissors, I'm going to trim that down. It's a little more than a 1/16 of an inch, less than an 1/8 of an inch. It's about 2 millimeters. Then I'm going to use a loop turner to help me turn these right side out. So that goes in, and then I'll see if I can just gently catch the fabric at this end. I want to bring the seam right out to the edge, and then I'll take them both over to the ironing board. So to get that seam right out to the edge, I'm going to use a little chopstick and just kind of drag it around that edge a little bit. This one looks a little distorted, but I think it's still going to end up looking good, so I'm not going to worry about it. This one looks so perfect. Isn't it pretty? Okay. And then to get bias, I just want to go corner to corner through these squares. I'm going to try it at 3/4 of an inch. With my little skinny strip of bias folded in half right side together, I'm just sewing right down the middle of it and giving a little stretch as I go. Before I sew all 3 like that, I'll just try turning one and make sure I can even make one this skinny. Oh my goodness, that is just slipping through like a hot knife through butter. No problem at all. Look how pretty that is. So I just spent an hour trying to find the original creator of this kind of calla lily. I thought I had saved it. I can't find it anywhere. If you have seen it, or if you know who the original creator was, please let me know and I'll add it into the description. She did it in white linen on a white linen blazer. It was beautiful. So while I was searching for it, I came across another way of making just a little smaller little lily. And so I'm going to put the 2 together to form a flower like that, with this little smaller one on the inside and the large one wrapping around, which I just think is so, so pretty. So I'm combining 2 different people's techniques. This one I did definitely save from an Instagram page called Fellini Lingerie. I've just cut 2.5 inch squares out of my silk. You wrap it around your spaghetti strap and you sew almost to here. You leave a little gap where your spaghetti strap is coming out. All right, I have sewn this one, but I think I'm going to try to leave that tail further out. I think it might end up making things easier. I am not sure. Okay, so now I'm sewing around just the 2 sides of that triangle. I want to do a nice strong back tack that keeps this tail secure. And then on this side, I don't sew all the way. You leave a little gap. Okay, no little holes, good. Okay, and now I'm going to pull the whole way. Turn that all the way out. bring out that little corner. Good. And now I'm going to pull this tail back until I see my little seam sticking out. And then I'm going to sew across all those raw edges. One more little tweak. When I do that step, I'm going to do it so that it's this way. That little seam is at the back. I don't want to do it like that. I think it's going to, for my purposes, sit nicer if I get it looking like that, where the seam of my little triangle is facing down. Now I'll do a little back tack across. Good. So the top of my flower looks good, but the bottom looks yucky. So here's the genius of this. And this will also going to do with the outer layer. You just flip it back. Good. Oh, isn't that so pretty? So now the bottom of the flower is perfect. I can cut off this part, or I can tie a knot so that it's like a little stamen. I'll just, I mean, I can always cut it off, but I think that's quite cute. Oh my heavenly days. So you could do a cluster like that. So gorgeous. I love it. But I'm going to add the other layer. Alrighty, so same kind of idea where I want this to wrap around. Start with it upside down. I've got the seam of this flower going down. And so now I'll just do my little back tack right there and then flip it back up. So I'm wrapping this around. The black is going to end up being on the outside. Sewn down like that. Then we flip it up. And I might need to do just a few stitches with the needle and thread until, oh my gosh, could I love it anymore though? That is the prettiest thing I've ever sewn in my life. That is just so exquisite. Okay, so I'm gonna make 3 like this. So with a needle and thread, I definitely want to hide my knot inside there. And just a few little stitches. And just as invisibly as I can do it. And to tie my knot, I'll bring my thread out on the back. I might have pulled too tight, flattening it out here. So that one will be underneath, and these ones I'll try not to flatten it like that. It's always nice to have 3 tries to get something just right. So instead of going to the back to tie my knot, I'm going to let this stay 3-dimensional there, and I'll tie my knot inside here. Better. I was playing with having these coming down, and it just looked funny over the bust line. So then I flipped them going up, and now, of course, I need to follow that strap all the way down, which means I need to open up the bodice to slip those inside. I think that is the prettiest way though. I think so. If these were longer, maybe I could do something nice and let them hang. No. Okay. So my original thought was that I would put these flowers on a safety pin so that I could remove them just to wear to a more normal event. I think that the Frocktails event will be a little bit more flamboyant, I guess, than, you know, just dinner out. This might be a one-time only dress because it'll all be easy to remove except for where I sew these stems into the bodice seam. Okay, so now with ivory thread, I'm just going to tack down each of the spaghetti straps. I think that is quite exquisite. These straps are just going to follow along. I tried playing around with braiding them or like letting them be more playful along here. And it just, I don't know, looked messy or unintentional. So I think I'm just going to have them go smoothly. Okay, so following them down, I'm just going to make a mark where they all hit that seam. Maybe I'll even do a little hand basting right there. Okay, so now I need to open up that little seam. And I think the easiest way to do it is at the side seam of the lining. I'm just going to open up a little gap, get in here, and sew that. There's the understitching. And then of course I sewed that strap in there pretty darn securely. Okay, no problem. I opened up this strap just enough to slip the ends of the stems in there. And now I'm realizing that that's going to show through. That's not going to be a big problem, but I'm just going to take a square of this heavier Georgette and put it on right on top of the sheer side. That's going to look beautiful. I think it's time that I can get excited. I think that's really going to be so pretty. So there's the hole I made in the side seam of the lining, and I can use that to access the strap. I've got that little square pinned to the sheer side, like the outside. Okay, and then I can trim off those little stems. This little bit will cover up any little ends. Then I can pull it all through, and then I can take out my little hand basting that I did just to keep those little straps in place. Okay, so that's what it looks like with the strap coming out of the bodice. I love it. That little square of the Georgette in there is hiding any trace of the white. That's good. So now I just need to close up that little hole that I opened in the side seam. So I'll just bring the edges together and sew nice and close to those edges. Good, so that's all closed up. I can get rid of all my yucky threads. And then you know what? I think this dress is done. Okay, it's done. I can barely believe it. And I think I'm madly in love with that flower arrangement there. I think that's just beyond pretty. I think that's really nice. I love it. I don't know what I'm going to do with my hair yet. I've got about 24 hours to figure that out. I don't think I'll wear a necklace, right? Because I don't want another focal point. I'll just let the flowers be the embellishment by my face. I don't think I'll wear a necklace. I wanted some definition at the waist without adding another focal point. So I think the black patent leather belt works well. And then I think I'm ready for Frocktails. So I know I'm not the only one who is spending the evening before Frocktails making the dress that I'm wearing. I know there's a lot of people in the Vancouver sewing community who are madly finishing their dresses, and I cannot wait to see everybody. So until next time on Catherine Sews, you take care.